All right. Welcome, everyone, to another installment of On the Bench, live with Amos Heller,
Hey,
famed
everybody.
player for Taylor Swift, amongst many others. How you doing, man?
I'm great, man. It's good to see you, man. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, like you said, it's good to see your face.
Yeah.
It's been a while. I get to see certain guys a lot more than others, and because you're located in Nashville, I don't get to see it as much. And it's always great to hang out with you at NAM and say hey. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, how have things been? How have things been at home?
Man, a little crazy. We have three young kids. We have 3, 6, and under. So we stay pretty busy as we are now pivoting to, daycare and camp counselor and all the other stuff. But honestly, it was going to be a pretty typical summer for us that way anyway.
Yeah.
So it's about getting the kids outside, moving them around, and for me, finding, with the help of my wife, of course, like space to create and work on music. So we've kind of found a groove that we've fallen into. So it's actually not bad.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And, I think one of the kind of silver linings is parents get to spend a lot more time with their young children.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
A lot.
That's cool. And actually, two are twins, right?
Yes. Yeah. We have 3-year-old twins. They're almost 4.
Wow. That's so cool, man.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, it is awesome. I mean, you're right. You can get used to just kind of like shipping them off to school or, sort of, and also that's obviously school is good for kids. I'm going to go on the record as saying that I'm pro school.
Yeah.
But honestly, yeah. I don't want to get canceled. Not yet. Not now. But having them around, you really like get to know them. And this, for us, our kids are so young, like to really get to like watch them grow up has been, it's been pretty great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And being in Nashville, it's like such a family-friendly city, and you get to spend a lot of time with them. Hopefully you get to go outdoors a little bit. I'm not sure how things have progressed too much in Tennessee. I know out here it's a little wild, but it's really awesome. I mean, my sister's got kids around the same age, so it's
oh wow, okay,
it's fun, and I could just imagine like all the they're learning to chit chat and then probably getting into music, right? A little bit.
A little bit.
You show them, the music that you played on, or sing them a song or something like that. That's really cool. So
my favorite story about that, which we absolutely do sometimes, we come into the studio, and I mean, right now they're so young that I basically take one of my less prized basses, plug it in, just lay it on the floor, and then just smack it with an open hand.
Yeah.
She's like, fine, maybe my kids will be like in a noise core band or something like that. That's something.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite moments was when my oldest Jack was, maybe he's about 2, really like coming online as a little person. I was like, all right, here's it. You see what daddy does. And I picked up the bass and I started playing it for him. And he goes, no, thank you. He was like not into it. And I started to play a little more. I was like, no. And he put his hands on the fretboard to stop the strings. He goes, all done.
Oh, wow. That's
it's the worst I've ever blown an audition in my life.
Brutal honesty. Yeah. Well,
it was. I was like, all right, I'll work on my pocket and tone, I guess. Damn.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, that kind of goes into a few different areas. I'm curious, like, because you've been home, there's always like that kind of tour life and work, balance. So you're out on the road, but you got family at home, and obviously, your main big gig is playing with Taylor Swift, and she's on the road, obviously right now. I think you guys are supposed to play Glastonbury, correct?
Oh yeah, we had the whole plan of the tour was to do a bunch of music festivals, mainly in Europe.
Yeah,
and that unfortunately those all got canceled, so we weren't able to play, and it was we were all just like super bummed out about it, and that was. That was even before we realized like the real, or I certainly realized the scope of like what's going on, like what's really happening in the world. So it is, and I've seen like a couple of, I've been tagged in a couple photos from some fans on Instagram. Like today would have been Glastonbury. Today would have been, some festival in Berlin. I'm like, oh, that it stinks, man. To sort of like get all ready for that, psyched up, ready, you have your family business settled, your gear business settled, your playing settled. Like, let's go do it. And then right as we were about to,
it's like, yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, how has the, the tour and family life balance been for you over the years? I mean, from what I know and what you've told me before, working with Taylor, it's like a big family. And you've always said that she treats you guys so well and that, it's just a big, like, loving relationship with everybody in the band. You guys hang out, like, kind of barbecue together, like in the off time and stuff, which is, I think, the coolest thing because, you hear about bands that have been on the road for a long time. And of course, it's like your family, right? You might butt heads a little bit, or and I'm not trying to get any dirt or anything like that. But
no, I'm ready to spill all the tea. Let's just show you everybody's deep dark secrets right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you said though was that she treats you guys super well, and that it's like one of the best things that's ever happened. And I can imagine, I mean, playing for somebody like so big and getting to tour the world. How has that, that balance been between being on the road and playing with her all over the world, and then, having the time to spend with your family and 3 young kids?
Oh yeah. I mean, a buddy of mine put it really well and used the word balance, which is a good one. But my friend Rod says, I prefer the term negotiation. And I think that's probably a lot more appropriate for the way that my family and my wife and my kids and I have like figured out a way to do it. Yeah. Because when I'm gone, my wife is in charge. She's the only parent around. So every mealtime, every bedtime, every scraped knee and snotty nose is her responsibility 100% of the time.
Sure.
So just for a little bit of a glimpse into my life, sometimes, especially after a long run, as we call it, I come home and sometimes it can be kind of a hard shift to go from hotel room where somebody else makes your bed and this, right, and then go into like full tilt dad mode where you are relieving a parent who has been on their own and outnumbered for maybe a couple of weeks or more. So sometimes it can be like getting the bends sometimes, because not only can you be fighting actual jet lag depending on where we've been. It's sort of like I don't know, vibe lag. I'm making that up, but
that's actually a really interesting term. I think that's cool. I mean, the vibe at home is you don't roll out of bed and then there's a buffet of pancakes and a French toast downstairs. No
matter how many times I ask, they're never.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and you can't leave your room a mess and expect somebody to come clean it up. And and then if it's not a show day, you can have like tons of downtime. You can go exploring and. I mean, you said it, man. The experience of playing for Taylor has been an awesome one. Getting to travel the world, and I mean, you said it too. The folks in the band are like a family to me. They're some of my best friends, and we go through a lot together. And it's great to do it alongside people who you like personally and respect professionally as well. They're such pros. They're so good and funny and smart and musical, and they're some of my best friends, and I miss them terribly on top of getting to sleep in and then having the pancake buffet and then getting to play music, do the thing that I love the most. I miss my friends on top of it all. It sort of sucks, but if I have to miss that, spending time with my family is a pretty good restorative for that. I guess they're okay. I mean, they have their moments.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's so cool. I really love that, obviously, like, the whole band is in support of Taylor, right? So it's kind of like you guys all have the same greater goal to, elevate the show, put on a great show and help her shine. And I think it's like working for any kind of company, right? That you're trying to just do the best you can and do your best work and get along with all your teammates. And everybody really just wants to, I don't think it's the same kind of scenario as in work, right? When you're in a band, there's lots of, you hear about old school British rock bands and stuff where ego gets in the way, who's the leader? Is it the guitar player or the singer or whatever? But for well, you guys are holding it down, right?
Totally.
So it's got to be cool because, everybody is in this kind of same mindset, and you just get to be friends with everyone. And I think that's just like so much fun. And I'm jealous that you get to see the world and go all these places. But I think the place that I want to hear about is, where you grew up, and like, more of your history, more of like how you even got there. Cause we started at the top, there is no above Taylor Swift, right? So it's where did it all begin for you, in terms of playing? Is your family musical? What about, the bass did you want, you gravitated towards it?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Man, it's great. A lot of great questions. I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia, originally born and raised. And I have to attribute a massive part of any success that I've had as a professional musician to my hometown's public school orchestra program.
Yeah, cool.
which is where I started playing music. I did like, some vocal lessons as a little kid. I took piano for, I don't know, some indeterminate amount of time. None of it stuck, I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
But when I started to go to the Charlottesville public school system in 6th grade, they have this really vibrant and well-funded and passionately led arts program. They have a great choir, a fantastic concert band, fantastic marching band, and a great orchestra. And my, orchestras in high schools are pretty rare. We did, it's kind of funny because I actually have never really thought about this until now, that my middle school and high school orchestra both went to a lot of competitions. You can sit there and, and do like there's a district competition. You sit there and you get scored by judges, and there's a champion, you get a medal, and there's an award ceremony, that whole kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I've actually never really thought about it, but it was kind of a team sport.
Yeah,
honestly, in a little way, because I was a wrestler as well. I had like an actual team, but then I had sort of music team, which cool. Sounds like I'm just learning how to speak English, but it was sort of orchestra team. Like we had sectionals and rehearsals, but our director really gave us these very concrete goals as far as districts is in 3 weeks, 2 months. Let's get ready for this. This piece needs to be better, and it really like kind of lit a fire under us. And there's really kind of no substitute for the fact that when I joined the orchestra in 6th grade, everyone else had already been playing for years, because they have a great feeder program. There's elementary school orchestras. They will hand you a violin if you think you want to play one when you're 7 years old. Take it home. You can rent it for $5 a semester. Like, it was really well funded, because cool. Orchestras are expensive. Just having the instruments there, you can't assume every kid's going to have their own one. So I had a bass at school I could just take home and practice on. And then they had ones at school for me to use. And man, for me, there's kind of no substitute for that. And that I came up in an atmosphere of excellence and kind of like competition, like really made it a thing. Like we want to beat another orchestra, which is kind of funny. And it feels very aggro for something where you wear a bow tie and, play proper music. We're like, we're going to crush you. It was kind of cool to synthesize those two things. So so Orchestral Upright is where I started. And there are two versions of why I picked bass. One is that since I was coming into an orchestra that was already together and had been playing for a little while, we asked, where do you need people? And most orchestras, like most bands, need a bass player. Sure. The not so great version is, I figured out, because I'm starting from scratch and everyone else had already been playing, I'm probably going to be last chair of whatever section I get into, and last out of 4 basses looks better than last out of 15 violins.
Sure, yeah.
So and there was little of column A, little of column B.
You got to be tall enough too, like next to the.
I was pretty small.
Yeah.
Also, so I endured a lot of comments like, that thing's bigger than you, or I'm like, yeah, you're a genius. But and it was I'm glad that I did it, because I used to teach electric bass lessons, and I would always say that I feel like the kids are easier to teach than the grown-ups. Because kids are, they're in this zone. A school age kid is in the zone where they're getting like lots of instruction. You sort of like, you may not have the best grasp as a young person whether what you're being asked to do is difficult. You don't stack it up against the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. So if you can't get the best sounds out of your bass, maybe that doesn't bother you. You're basically just going to kind of do the work, and then the sound and awareness and musicality kind of all come in later. Whereas the adults, would sit down something, and they've heard Victor Wooten, they've heard George Porter Jr., they've heard Jocko, they've heard Cliff Burton, all these. I was like, I want to do that. And I'm gonna go, okay, cool. That's gonna take a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And they can detect, you know, I want to do this run. I can tell it's not right just from the experience, I think, of being an adult. So I was glad I started when I did, because upright bass is very difficult. It's you don't have you have to worry about intonation. Your hand posture has got to be very specific. It's difficult to approach physically, to sort of get your body around the bow. Bow takes a lot of strength. Left hand takes a lot of strength.
Yeah.
So when I moved to electric in 8th grade, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. I don't have to worry about it being in tune. So I developed actually a really heavy right hand approach, because I was used to doing pizzicato on an upright. So I was a very heavy, like grindy right hand sort of player. So I gravitated towards people who played like that as well. But I think it's weird that my affection for guys like Billy Gould from Faith No More and Flea came from my orchestral background in kind of an indirect way.
That's cool. I love that, you know, you went to a school that was, you know, well funded and did that, because, you know, look where it took you.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that schools continue to fund, you know, the arts programs, because like you said, when you're a kid, you're a sponge. Like, you just absorb all this information, and it's just like kind of pure, innocent curiosity that you want to learn. And then, you know, those competitions kind of get you riled up, so you're excited about it. Yeah. And I've seen it more like in drumline, right? You know, because
absolutely.
Drumline is like super fun just as like a spectator, because like you just go see everybody, you know, walk out on the field, and then, you know, choreographed, you know, together. So it's just like a fun team, right? You know, and you get to be part of that. And I think that's so cool. So you started playing upright, and then you played, you know, you said 8th grade you got your first electric bass?
Yeah. And,
you know, then you said you had a heavy right hand. So I know you're also a metalhead, like myself. So that must have been really fun to go from, you know, this kind of classical world, or maybe even played some jazz tunes, to
it was just classical. I never did get into jazz on upright. Okay. I wish I had, but my plate was pretty full at that point.
Sure. So okay. So you know, I know that you got into playing some metal tunes, and I know in Nashville there's a lot of guys that are, you know, you have country gigs or pop gigs, but you know, you guys do like cover bands and stuff too, right? Yeah.
I'm gonna blow the whistle a little bit on Nashville sidemen. Almost every country band has some, we call them secret shredders. There's somebody in that band who came up doing double, you know, finger tapping on a Charvel dinky, and I can name names, but I won't.
Yeah.
But a lot of, I mean, and of course, if it's more like traditional stuff, no. If you go see like George Strait, his guys probably came up like playing country.
Sure.
So like more modern and more like upbeat, or like the pop tinged country or the rock tinged stuff. I'm telling you, there's somebody in each one of those bands who knows how to finger tap. I did a, let me think. I'm going to mess up the bands, but I did a Pantera tribute night with.
That's killer.
John Prine. No, not John Prine.
That would be crazy.
No. John Party's drummer, and I think one of I cannot think of his, like Darius Rucker's guitar players. Okay. And then there was like a Bradley Gilbert, like a dude with like a mohawk and plugs, like you'd think, like one of Bradley Gilbert's guys was there. But everybody else was from some surprisingly mainstream country gigs.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I can speak for everybody else, but what I found coming up is I've played classical, I've played jazz, hardcore, thrash metal, funk, church worship, all this kind of stuff. I've done a great deal of genres, and what I realized at some point is I just like to play. I like playing, and I've been in bands that I would love, and I've been in bands that I wouldn't be a fan of if I wasn't up there like making the music. But that was kind of what spurred my move to Nashville. Was I think I just like to play, and I think I can have fun playing almost anything. And I moved to Cincinnati to go to. I went to college just outside of Cincinnati, a place called Miami University.
Cool.
And when I was in my late 20s, I sort of got to a point where I was like, I think I need to be somewhere where things are happening. Cincinnati has a great music scene. Charlottesville has a great music scene, especially for how small it is. But I feel like I need to go. Nobody I know is getting on a tour bus and leaving from Cincinnati. Nobody's leaving on a tour bus from Charlottesville, but lots of people are leaving on tour buses from Nashville.
Yeah.
So I think I said I could probably have just as much fun playing country as, high-speed jazz fusion. And I was largely correct, because having a lot of people show up for it certainly increases the amount of fun I'm having, no matter what I'm playing.
Yeah. I mean, sport music, as I call it, is fun, But
that's an odd theme with this conversation: sport music.
Yeah. So I mean,
that's funny.
So you moved to Cincinnati, and what were you studying when you were in school?
So I switched majors a couple of times, but I ended up getting a degree in sociology with a minor in German.
Oh, that's
which
cool.
has served me extremely well.
Yeah,
here in the music business.
I mean, hey, sociology is kind of cool, though. I mean, I'm always interested when folks are not, they didn't do music education the whole way through, but like you said, you just love to play, and you're like, I just want to keep playing. And you played like in like a GB band, pretty much, right? Like you played like a lot of top 40, like like general business.
General business.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write some of these down. This is great. General business, music, sports.
Yes. So you, from what I know, is you got a kind of crash course in learning everything, every kind of style, because you had to know if there was a request that you had to play, whatever came up.
Yep.
So yeah, tell us more about how you learned all your different kind of genres, and all the way up till moving to Nashville.
Oh, sure. Man, that's a great question. I mean, this is, it's pretty simple in a way, because the most direct answer is I just said yes to things. If I was in some, I would have to take a second and try to remember how one thing led to another. But I mean, it's as simple as you're in a band of some denomination, playing out, doing your thing, and if you're turning in good work, there's a likelihood that some of the audience or one of the other bands you're playing with might tap you on the shoulder and go, "Hey, I have a side project that you might be good for." Or, the absolute ringing of the dinner bell, our bass player just quit. I was like, "Excuse me?"
Yeah.
Go on.
The dinner bell. I like that. That's yeah.
Yeah. So I said yes to as many things as I possibly could, and you just sort of, I would say you learn while you earn, with earn in in smaller typeface. You just sort of learn in the middle of it. I didn't have. I'm trying to remember, because I ended up in a pretty aggressive fusion sort of jazz, a couple of different jazz fusion small groups with like drums, guitar, bass, maybe a saxophone. And I'm not totally sure how I ended up in those things.
Yeah.
No, I do actually now. I remember I got called for one of those cover gigs where you're just sort of playing in the corner of a bar while people are doing, and then two guys that I play with had a fusion side project of their own that they asked me to be in. So it was like, oh, okay, man, I'll give this a shot. And then it just takes time, man. And believe me, I'm learning how to do a lot of stuff here at home. So I'm constantly watching tutorials. I'm watching tutorials about mixing and using Logic, and then shooting video and all this other stuff that I think a lot of musicians are probably starting to pivot to at this time. But for me, on some level, you just have to do whatever it is a bunch, no matter how many tutorials you watch or lessons you take. It's just about gaining a sense, especially as a bass player, gaining a sense of what decisions are available to you in a certain context, and then choosing the correct one and executing it. And I think that just takes time. And for me, I learn best if I go through a situation that's frustrating, or one that I might mark down as a failure. It's like, wow, that was, I didn't get called back for that gig. Never could figure out how to play along with this thing. What was wrong with my tone? I couldn't hear myself. And you walk away frustrated, and walking away from something you wanted to go well that didn't go the way you wanted, with a problem to solve 100 times over, I think is how anybody builds that solid foundation as any kind of player of that moment where you realize the things that are available, you're able to pick the correct one and execute it correctly. I think that just takes a lot of time and probably a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a challenge and then rise to the occasion, right? And
I think so.
that's where you learn stuff. I mean, it's great when you do well and people pat you on the back and then you feel good about yourself, but like you really learn more. Everybody says you learn more from your failures than you do from your success.
Absolutely.
Just being prolific, like you said, just being in lots of different bands, saying yes, and maybe doing a gig for a free dinner and some drinks. Like,
oh yeah,
I want all musicians to get paid as much as they can, but there is a kind of that young age where you just have to hustle and learn stuff.
And knowing how to market and or price yourself is a whole different conversation that I don't even know how much authority I have to speak on. But I will say this: you said something earlier when you talked about the Taylor band. It's like we're all sort of pulling together as a team and working together. That's very true of that band, but that's true, I think, across the board. And if the thing you show up with attitude-wise is how can I bring this vision, this person's vision or this band's vision, how can I serve this the best? How can I bring it to life? Show off the folks who are needing to be showed off, show off yourself if that's what it calls for. I think that's how you do it. And you find ways to be a good collaborator and a person that someone wants to call. You be the person you would want to work with. I think it's pretty straightforward. Yeah,
you want people to say, what happens a lot of the times too is like, hey, you might not be 10/10 all the time. Maybe you made a couple of mistakes in the gig, but hey, Amos is really friendly. We get along well. I know he practices. He shows up on time. All those things really, come and like help push you along to get you those gigs. And then, all you want to do is just make more friends in life, right? It's just like, why would you want to go through the world and just be, have a stink face and just like you butt heads with folks? You just really want to get in there, make people around you feel good and be of service. It's like, be part of the solution, not the problem. Yeah.
It's not there's a lot of things about the sort of the deployment of music that are very specific. The skills involved are pretty particular and they're very personal and they can take, like I said, a long time to develop. But I feel like the only advice I ever give to folks who want to know how to land or keep a big gig, it's all what you'd think. It's like, don't be a jerk, do your work, be a professional, show up on time, and it's a job. Like, do your job, like do the thing. If someone says this is the part that required, you go, okay. I can't believe that I used to say that I wouldn't play with a pick. I think that is an absolute sort of bellwether for what for me was some sort of stink facey, like I know what I'm doing, that kind of thing. It's like somebody asks you to play the pick, you're just going to say no. That's to me now that just seems absolutely absurd.
I mean, and I think I've learned a lot making instruments for guys like you. In how that relates to making instruments is like I have to give you what you're asking for, I'm here to be of service to you so you can go do your job better, and that's what you're doing for Taylor. And that's what, Corey McCormick here, who plays with Neil Young and Lucas Nelson, he said, big love, guys, this is great. He's of service too, to those guys. And all of the artists that I've dealt with, at Yamaha have always just been the consummate professional, have always been just on their game and really of service to who they're playing with. And I think that means a lot. Guys that really get to that upper echelon of playing they don't have anything to prove because they know what they're capable of. They show up, they do the work, and they're just like of service. And I really respect that. And I really respect that of you. And I think, so you did all this work, you played in these bands, you always said yes, and then you moved to Nashville. What happens from there?
Nashville was kind of starting over, because, and I think it's something I was drawn to, honestly, about that, it reminded me a lot of, because I was privileged enough to go to like a 4-year college, like went away to college, like lived in the dorms, like all that kind of stuff. And moving to Nashville reminded me of going to college in a couple of ways. One, so it's like a brand new thing where I moved here with a buddy of mine who I've known since high school. So I did have like a friend, you know, we moved in together. I've known my friend, do you know DeVo, don't you? Devin Malone?
I don't know. We might have met, but I'm not positive.
You should know him. He's a
there's so much music and so many folks that I don't know. So I don't say good to see you. I say nice to meet you, because if I don't remember, I'm meeting you for the first time again.
Oh yeah. No, it's brand new for me. Let's just do it all over again.
Yes, yeah.
I love meeting people. But no, DeVo is his nickname, but he's a very good friend of mine. Absolute monster guitar player, somebody who's been a real inspiration to me as far as like getting my sort of professional philosophy together. But anyway, he was a friend of mine that I knew. And then anyway, there were like, say 3 or 4 of us that moved like right around the same time. We all kind of knew each other, but we were all starting over. And in that sense, it did remind me of college. Like nobody knows who we are. We have everything to prove. And we have, we have the gear and the knowledge and the musicianship and ability that we brought with us, but that's it. Yeah. So it was a scramble. It was a hustle. We all like would learn something sort of monumental on a gig and then come back and text everybody about it. Like, no, just heard somebody say, never do this. No, none of us ever do this,
Yes.
Like just trying to sort of cobble together what's going on. And it felt like it was absolutely a situation where I think we all had sort of everything to prove. And so I started over, said yes to everything. I played for free and just tried to kind of hustle my way onto something. I just want to get sort of like just merge with traffic and just sort of like see what everybody else is doing. And I was like trying to figure out like where people go to hang out, what bands do the sidemen, because that was what I was able to figure out. It's like I think I want to tour. I want to be a touring player.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine gave me a great piece of advice when I moved here. And when I sort of hung out my shingle and said, hey, I'm here to be a bass player, a lot of people said, what do you want to do? And trying to do that kind of like open to anything, I said, I'll do anything. I was like, I'll do showcases, sessions, touring, anything. And I don't know that this is gospel necessarily, but a good friend of mine said, you should stop saying that because I don't really know how to help you. But if you know a specific thing that you want, it's actually a lot easier to figure out, because trying to become an in-town showcase guy, where there's like the sort of in-town shows that are, if the parlance in Nashville anyway, is that it's usually at a smaller club, but the profile is high, the money's pretty good, and the players are pretty solid. This is like breaking a new artist or showing off a songwriter. You get a great band of people around them and really do the thing. That's one thing. Being a Broadway guy where you play cover music downtown, mainly, for like tourists and people who want to have a good time, touring sideman or session dude. And you can't be all of those. There just isn't enough time. So my buddy was like, you should pick a thing that you want to be. And I said, I want to be on a tour bus. He goes, artist gig. What you want is called an artist gig. I was like,
yeah.
Got it. Text everybody. It's an artist gig. They're called artist gigs. Say you want one.
Yes.
And it was it was a fun time. It was a crazy time. It was a lot of ramen, a lot of late nights. But I just tried to get in there and say yes to anything anyone would teach me. And people taught me a lot and helped me a lot. Everybody was very helpful. Here's a CD of songs you need to learn. You need to go meet this person and say hi. A bunch of us are going to a poker game. That's a great network hang. You should come. Like, I got a lot of help because I wouldn't have been able to navigate it just using my own instincts. People were really kind to me. That's
great. But you were also open to it. Like that's the thing. It's like people give you advice and you took it and you run with it, right?
Yeah.
So what was like your first, touring gig out of Nashville?
My first touring gig was a guy named Daryl Perry, who was a kind of like a sort of traditional, at the time was sort of a traditional, like straight ahead country, like real country artist, like, like cowboy hat and songs about broken hearts. Like it was, it was country, and it was great because it was like a real education because I never really played stuff like that. And I made the mistake of thinking, oh, it's easy. And it is not. There's a right way to do everything.
Yeah, of course.
So that was hard work. And Daryl's a hard worker, man. He would do like all night cover gigs where we would drag the PA in ourselves, set it up, sound check it, play 3 hour and 15-minute sets with breaks, strike it all down, load it back up.
Wow.
For not that much money. But Daryl just was slugged at it. So I, helped change spare tires, drove the van.
Yeah.
It was long enough ago that like helped him set up his MySpace and just did that. Like, and that was the gig that let me quit the coffee shop where I was working. So that was like my first like actual touring gig. But it was tough work. And a couple of connections later, my first artist, I would say honest to God artist gig was for a guy named Rhett Akins.
Okay.
Who is if you know the country singer Thomas Rhett, this is actually his father, who is a really prolific songwriter and very successful, and had a bunch of like radio hits in like maybe like the mid to late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first time I was actually like on a tour bus was playing for Rhett. And that was a little bit less than a year after I moved to Nashville.
Yeah. You're friends with Travis, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so I mean that was another question I have for you later, but I guess we can get to it now.
Sure.
There's a thing in Nashville where you guys are all buds and you sub for each other all the time.
Oh yeah.
And I think you subbed and played with Thomas, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So that's a really cool thing, and I think it kind of speaks to when you moved out there and you had some friends, and you guys all kind of slugged it out together. It's a really cool kind of community, it feels like, in Nashville, where it's not so much that you're feeling threatened to lose your gig as much as you are.
Right.
Me and my friends, we're all going to rise together and do this job and help each other. And that's really how I think you get far in this business is you try and get people paid, right?
Yeah.
So if your friends get you paid,
because then they all helped it.
Yeah, and they
that's absolutely right.
Yeah, and I think that is like one of the biggest things for people to learn. It's like you want to learn all these tips and tricks from your friends who got paid doing this gig. Then they give you those tips and tricks. You bring it to your gig, and then you hear something like, hey, there's an opening for this artist, or I need to stay home, or I can't make this late. Can you sub for me because I got this other gig?
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool. And so you had this first gig, and then how did the whole Taylor thing come about? That was,
man, okay. So I'll say it this way. One of a absolutely formative experience for me was the first time I was in a rehearsal with a bona fide artist gig sideman. Was playing for my buddy Matt, and I was I spent the whole rehearsal going, oh, there's one, like the thing that I'm like looking to be is like, there's one, and I'm just gonna pay like real close attention, like what's he like, and his name was Al, and he was awesome. He ended up being like one of my best friends. Mm-hmm. So he had an artist gig for a guy named Josh Grayson that I would end up playing for down the road. Al and I would actually just miss each other on that gig, but Al was the band leader, which means he's the guy in charge of like hiring and firing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so we're doing this rehearsal, and my buddy, like in his spare bedroom, basically. Al gets a text, he looks at his phone, he's like, hey guys, hang on a second. And he has to go outside and take a phone call. And he comes back in, he sits down and he goes, well, our fiddle player just quit. Does anybody know a good fiddle player? Just like that. And for me, that was a light bulb going on, because it's like, first of all, that's how business seems to be done. And this, Josh did good work, but he wasn't like at the highest level, but it's a working gig where you can absolutely make a living. The thing I wanted was turning over right in front of me. And the way I watched it happen was a guy casually mentioning to a room of people, some of whom he didn't know terribly well. He's like, hey, I need a fiddle player. And you guys know one? And in that moment, I was thinking, like, if I played fiddle, or if his bass player had just quit, I might be able to go, I'll do it.
Yeah.
It was like, man, what if it's that easy? And I learned that it is about connect. It's like, think of it this way, because everybody here is good. Most people with gigs are good. I don't know very many awesome people who don't have gigs. And I don't know very many people. I don't know people on gigs who like shouldn't be there. It's
no shortage of talent.
No, there's no shortage of talent, and everybody is a pretty good fit. And think if you like, lost a bass player in a band that you were in, and you just had kind of your pick of a bunch of different people, all of whom were qualified and would do good work. What if you just got to pick the one you liked the most as a person?
Yeah, it's who do you want to hang with most?
And I think that sort of informal thing is how it happens a lot, because this is another sort of peek behind the curtain, but I've come to the conclusion that people don't want to do what we call a cattle call audition, which is, it's a bit of a Hollywood version of it, where you go to a rehearsal space like SIR and you look down a hallway of 18 bassists who kind of look like you, playing a bass like yours, like slapping and popping, getting ready for their chance to go in.
They're all looking at you, grilling you.
Yeah, I think that's what I was ready for. But that's a pain in the butt.
Yeah,
it's expensive for management to do, because they got to rent out a thing and hire the band and have the thing. And it's exhausting.
You got to spend a day listening to the same song 100 times.
Oh my God. But way easier is just if your band leader goes, well, shoot, we just lost our bass player. I do know a guy who I think would be a great fit, and he's looking for a gig. You go, great.
Boom. I trust you.
Yeah.
I'll talk to this guy. And then, hey, can you send me a recording of you playing these 3 songs?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Then, hey, maybe come to a rehearsal and play for us one day.
Sure.
And then boom, then you're on the gig.
Yeah. I got the Rhett Akins gig just like that.
Yeah.
And I got the gig, but I will say that I walked into it realizing that, so we did like a run through of like all the songs, which I realized without anybody saying it, like, this is the audition.
Yeah.
Like, don't screw this up. You don't have the gig. You are here to prove that you have the gig.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I probably shouldn't tell us, but I will. So we ran through just the band, like running through it a bunch, and it's going fine. I did a ton of homework. I just made sure I had everything cold. I didn't want to use charts. Yeah. I just want to because I like what I think of when I prepare for a gig is I like to have fun. I like to perform and connect emotionally with the music and just kind of let myself go. And the only way I can do that is if I know the songs cold. If I know how they're supposed to go, I have the lyrics in my head. If there's a signature lick, I've got it. So I almost think about it like I'm going to prepare for a gig so I can have fun. And it takes a lot of prep for me to have fun.
Yeah. Do you want somebody to read you a story or tell you a story? Right.
Oh, nice. I like that.
There's a difference between, I can.
Oh, that's great.
I can hit my beats. I can do my thing because I read it off a piece of paper, or I know this and it's just coming out, and I also get to shape it in a way, in a way, right? And it's not always about, obviously for a large band, like they want you to know how to play the songs exactly how it is on the record, because when people come to the show, they want to hear that and they want it to be like this great immersive experience. So that's kind of table stakes. But when it comes to, is it Amos playing it, or is it, just whoever? There's
an exact replica of like the part on the record. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little difference. You could always have a John Doe that can play, whatever. But it's like, so go on, keep going. I don't want to cut you.
Oh no, it's okay. No, that's a great tangent though. I'm trying to. So for that gig, I learned everything. I got it like just nails. And I will say this is a little bit of a tangent, but when I take on a gig like that, where I start with my level of preparation is exactly like the record. So I want to know the rules before I start breaking them.
Yeah.
And I never want to be, I don't even know if this has ever happened to me, but I have this sort of imagination of being in a rehearsal context where I've got like the vibe of the song, basic idea. And the band leader or artist goes, can you play it exactly? Just exactly. This is one we want exactly like the record. I don't want to go, well, I didn't learn it.
Yeah. You can't get in that situation.
I took your money to show up and make you look good. And I'm telling you, I didn't do the work to give you the thing that you want. So I always start there. Yeah. So I always want to go, yes. Cause they go, don't worry about the record. Do your thing. Of course I can do that. Anybody can do that. But like, I want to try to ape the record as closely as possible. And for me on the Rhett gig, because it was fairly traditional, that's pretty much what I did. I sent that one straight down. Yeah. And I remember being in the rehearsal, and this is another funny thing. I don't know if folks are going to have much experience with this kind of thing, But when I learned, what I learned also at that rehearsal is it's weird to run songs with no vocal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But that's how you know if you know it.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh man, I'm way more at sea than I thought I was going to be.
Yeah.
Because I'm waiting for the vocal to come in, and I'm, there's, when he says this, then that's where this lick comes in. Realize I didn't have any of that. So that's kind of that can be sort of a bit of a curveball. I want to see a question. How much time? Hey, Xavier. Xavier, I hope I'm saying that right.
Oh,
how much time do you need?
We have Erin helping us out, so she popped this question up. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. So the question says, how much time do you need for prepping a gig? How much time are you typically given to prep? That's a great question.
Yeah.
So I want to pivot back to talking about when I subbed for Travis on the Thomas Rhett gig.
Yeah.
So that, big artist, the shows are big. There's a lot of production. There's blocking and all that stuff. So man, I started months ahead of time because Travis knew exactly where I was going to be needed, and the length of time. Everything was all set. So I had him start feeding me board tapes and set lists as soon as possible. Yeah. For me, getting a song exactly right, I can't do 8 of those in a day. I think if it came down to like a desperation thing where I wanted to use charts here and there, I would be able to. But for me to really soak in a song and feel like I can play it, I want to get a song where I can play it without any of the band playing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I went from taking that sort of note about, or I mean, I remember actually sorry, I'm pivoting back and forth so much, but from that Rhett rehearsal, I remember making a bunch of mistakes because I didn't have the vocal to pivot off of. I was like, well, that sucks. And that was the thing I went home. I was like, I'm not doing that again. I'm going to prepare for this and pretend. And so sometimes I will play through a song with nothing, like just in the clear, trying to make sure I know that the tempo in the clear, I know the key in the clear, and can get the part right. So I can get, if I'm using charts on a gig, if it doesn't matter that much, that doesn't have to be that much time, because I've learned how to make pretty good charts. The stuff that I do as far as subbing or getting called for stuff, I typically have a pretty good amount of time, say at least a week. And I usually don't get called for stuff with a super long set list. So let's say, just for the sake of argument, like a showcase gig, 6 songs, I would use a week or 2 weeks to work on something like that. And so I do what I never did when I was in school, which is I make like a map. So it's like, I use this, if I have the luxury, I set myself a diet of 2 songs a day to really sit. And when I walk out of the practice session that day, I know those songs ice cold.
Yeah.
So if I have 8 songs to learn, I know they'll take at least 4 days. And then I want to go, well, I want 2 days where I do nothing but run the set.
Yeah.
So I'll, sometimes I just back it up like that. Or like, is the rehearsal 2 days before the gig? So let's back from that. And then even before that, I mean, this is if I have a lot of luxury, I just listen. Just put the songs, that set list on a loop while I'm doing dishes, mowing the yard, working out, anything like that, just to try to really soak it in. So, and that's such a great metaphor. So I can tell a story. Once we're there doing it, I can tell the story. I'm not just reciting it.
Yeah. And there's like a difference between, if you play in an orchestra, it's more common to have the sheet music in front of you because there's so many people and you're all kind of doing this together. So it's like a coordinated thing versus like a band where it's maybe, up to 10 people. It's really cool to see it. Everybody just know it. And it just feels more natural. And I think, another thing about keeping your gig, kind of like, Travis needed you to sub. He was smart enough to know ahead of time, like, okay, I'm going to need this time off, and I'm going to make sure I'm not going to leave the band, in a position where if they need somebody to play, that I'm going to give them somebody that's really good. And this is how, bass players help each other out, or guitar players help each other out. And it's just like, hey, I'm going to help you get paid and you'll take this gig, but like, you got to play it as good as I do. And then help each other get there and do that and tell that story. And I think that's a really good question, Xavier. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
So you come in to play the set, but it's really your audition. And I've heard this from a couple of guys. Another friend of mine who played with Britney Spears, the MD was just kind of giving him 80s metal tunes to constantly play like, hey, can you play this tomorrow? And he would be like, yeah, and then have it ready, and then it would happen a bunch of times, and it was like, well, that was really your audition, because if you could play that stuff, you could probably play this stuff.
Oh,
and,
funny.
Yeah, so and then
That's
it's
cool.
just it's really cool. Zach Comtois, he's a really great guitar player. But yeah, so how did this that wasn't the audition for Taylor though?
No, the Taylor gig came about. It was through a connection. It really was. It was just through somebody I knew in the band, and this was. You sort of have to understand how long ago this was. I've been touring with her for 13 years.
That's great.
So when I started on the gig, we were just playing country music, and the gigs were really exciting, but they were, we were doing clubs and theaters and stuff like that. And then we would like go open for Brad Paisley at like the Minnesota State Fair and stuff like that. But it was I played a jazz bass through a Sands amp. It was very straightforward, but I was grateful that by the time I came to that gig, I'd had 2 other gigs, and I'd had like chance to like learn how to conduct myself on a bus. And I'd had a chance to learn how to behave during sound check, and it's all this stuff that you just kind of pick up. It's sort of cultural stuff, I would have to say, about being a sideman. That's all this stuff that's in addition to your ability to play, your ability, even I think your ability to be a storyteller on stage instead of an executor. I think even that is a side thing, because it's like you start with like, are you good enough to do the gig? Yes, and then there's all these other questions about it.
Yeah.
So I went from playing for Rhett Akins, who, when I looked around, like, how's the band doing? What's he doing? Like, what's his vibe on stage? And he's subtle. He's he's sort of a big guy. He has a big presence. He doesn't run around and do a whole bunch of crazy stuff. So I was thinking, because I like to run around and do crazy stuff, because I came up playing thrash metal and funk and stuff like that. But then I started playing for Josh Grayson, and he was way more like aggro and upbeat, and he's throwing shirts out of the audience. He's running around, sort of, like try to knock you over if you stay out. So I was like, okay, well, this is a mosh pit now on stage. So like, okay, so now this is the thing for this, and I adjust to like the personality of the players in the band and the vibe on stage and all that stuff. And I was glad to have like some level of seasoning on me when I got the call for the Taylor gigs. I was like, okay, well, I know how to. And same thing. I was like, what is she like? What's the rest of the band like? And that was another adjustment. And that, since I've been with it for a long enough time, that has also changed as well. But the short answer is it's tough to start building a reputation, because you just have to get on stage somewhere. You have to find something you can sort of latch onto. But that's the currency to me in this town, is like your reputation as a player, as a person, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, it's who you know, it's being in the right place at the right time, but also, it's preparation meets opportunity, right? You can't opportunity arises, but you're not prepared, you're not going to get it. And so that's a big part of it. I see a question here from Alex Harris. It says, I've seen you do cool bass features on Taylor Swift tour, which is really cool and unique for a pop gig. How do you approach this, like stage presence, tone, playing choices versus like your individual solo playing?
Okay, man, that's a great question. Let me see. How do you approach this? Stage presence, tone, and playing choices. Okay, so that's a good question. I like that. Doing bass solos in a pop / rock context. I guess I mean it to say outside of specific like jazz or instrumental music, where what we're here to see, the story we want to be told, is all here. It's all on the fretboard or in the horn or on the drums. Like that's the tool we're going to use. And stage presence and that performance vibe, I would say, isn't as important. I think it's important to try to be entertaining while you're doing a solo. And what I would say, what I've learned, because I mean, there have been a couple of spots on a couple of tours where it is like a bit of a bass feature, and the thing that I have used as kind of guidance on that is like, this still needs to be entertaining to an arena full of people.
Yeah.
And for me sitting there and showing everybody how fast I can slap and double thump and do that stuff, like I don't think that's going to be, I don't think that's what's going to do it. And what ended up coming out, and one of them was I actually did like a tapping piece with a very clear theme. It was actually pretty chill, and it was kind of a mood setter for this very sort of dark and heavy piece that came right after it. So I was like, well, and that already, this sort of gave me a skeleton to hang that performance on. What is this like? What's the mood board for this look like? What does the stage look like while this is going on? And it wasn't me down at the end of the thrust going like this with a hot spotlight right on me. I'm sort of like parked off on one side of the stage. There's mist everywhere. The lights are kind of like dim and purple and moody and coming from right overhead. So I'm like, okay, now you got to fit something that sounds like this looks.
Yeah.
So for that moment, I'm happy to say that I favor a tone when I'm playing live, and certainly for this particular song that is pretty articulate and pretty bright. I don't necessarily like it to be tubby or overdriven or something like that. I like a pretty clear tone. So in that case, this tone, actually the tone that I was going to use to play in that song, worked for the solo, especially with everything else stripped away. But it was enough to where you can hear like the rattle of the string and the articulation from the tapping, and had a couple really low notes in it too. So it worked for that as well. There was another tour where we had like a really upbeat, like a more of an upbeat, exciting thing that was sort of like a check me out, watch it go kind of thing. But even in that, the only way it made sense to me to try to keep the audience's attention was to thread something recognizable through what I was doing. Yeah. So it actually was a mashup we did from a Taylor song into a cover song. So cool. The moment of the bass solo was introducing the cover song.
Oh, that's nice. Well, yeah, I mean, you got to know your audience, right? Like, you got to. It's not the crowd that goes to go see, Steve Vai or something. So like,
not necessarily, no.
And and you're putting on this show, right? So you have to be entertaining the whole time. They paid their hard money to see and be entertained, and I think that's really cool, though. That like, you could play more of like a ballad or something because it's leading into this, really romantic song or something from Taylor where like you're setting her up. It's cool to like, check and checkmate, right? Like you line them up so she knocks them down kind of thing. So it's really important for you to get her there.
Exactly. Even in this moment where it's look at me, it is still her name on the ticket. It is still about supporting this show. And so for the one song, it's like, this is about setting the mood for this thing it's about to follow. And I'm also like, I don't know. I like to commit physically, and I don't often have to remind myself to do it. I feel like I'm just kind of an expressive player. I like to move, and I came up playing thrash metal where everybody's headbanging. That's always my favorite stuff. And I like watching somebody who looks like they are moved by the thing that they're doing.
Yeah,
like they're moved by the band they're in, or the line that they came up with. Like, yeah, I love this, and they're like, I love that too. Now we both love it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of like sort of broody and moody for the first one. But the second one, now we're thinking about stuff like your posture. Like, you want your face to be up, you want to be looking out, and
you don't want to do this the whole time and not move.
Not really, because I think most people in any audience aren't bass players, so they're probably still looking here.
Yeah.
So when I started playing the line of the song, you sort of look around and kind of you want to like project what's going on and give folks an idea of what they're supposed to be doing right now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's sort of like, broody and moody. Oh, you're supposed to be a little spooked out. Oh, and anticipatory. This other one it's like, and we're playing Name That Tune. Does anybody know what this is? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I think it is really, I think it's back to that thing I was rambling on about before. It is knowing the options that you have available, choosing the one that fits the song and helps the show, and then execute that with some commitment. So it gets very actory for me on stage sometimes, no matter the gig that I'm in.
Yeah, and even though it's a solo and it's focused on you, you can't like have the ego come in where it's just like, this is my time to, just show every technique, everything that I've ever done. It's more about like, oh, I get a cool moment, and how can I make it the most effective? Yeah. And I think, when Alex was asking about like your playing choices and your tone, you've done some of the social riffing videos and stuff, and it's like I really hear like very clear left hand You know, it's like you let the notes really ring
Oh, thanks, man.
incredibly well. And there's a lot of definition and clarity to each note. And I
Oh,
think
thanks.
that's really cool when you said, like, you know, I don't really like this big low thumpy thing with Taylor because it's more of like a brighter, clearer sound. And I think that that's really cool. I don't know, like, what you particularly feel like if you have a signature sound or something like that, but I know.
I think I do and I don't. Oh, let me to finish up, because if one of the things that Alex was asking about was compared to like Occasion, the thing I did for the social riffing, that is not a tone I think I would use in a band. Like and honestly, my sort of I'm learning, one of the many tutorials I'm piling up is like how to mix. Like and something I keep hearing over and over again is like, when you're mixing whatever it is, your kick drum, your bass drum, the keys, you don't do it solo. You listen to everything else. Well, you can pump it up a little bit if you want, but the only thing that matters is how it sounds in a mix. That's so I've heard lots of soloed bass tones that don't sound good by themselves, but when you get the rest of the band around, you're like, this just fills the exact gap. So it was engineering that sound was kind of a challenge, because something I found is that, so I'm doing sort of a light chording thing. Whatever note is sort of the fundamental, that was always really loud. And I listened to a bunch of mixes where that's all you could hear was like the note that I'm thumping, like this, sort of the root note. So I actually went into the EQ and pulled out frequencies that you typically would never pull out when you're like, I pulled out like right around 100, which is like money for actual bass. A lot of pedals, amps, and basses have the bass control set at 100 or 80. Here I am pulling it out because it was almost like mixing a separate instrument in a way. So I had to make the low notes jump out less so that the high notes would carry, because that's, even though I was playing it on a single instrument, there's in that piece, there's more or less a melody, a bass line, and a rhythm. And trying to get those to mix was actually kind of a challenge, because like because I'm just thumping on the string to sort of imply like kind of a backbeat. There were a couple of mixes where that was really obnoxious. So I had to find that frequency and cut that down a little bit, and then the low thing, and then I just I boosted mids a lot more than I typically do. But it was just trying to make it make sense for the thing you have in the moment.
And I'm not sure if everybody really realizes like how technical you are on some of these things, because you do have like a lot of gear, you have a lot of amps and stuff. And I know like on the road, you guys use modelers and stuff where like everybody in the band is like kind of controlled by the front of house, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I can't get too into it, but it's complicated. I'll say that. It's heavy duty. There was a time when it was like an amp and a mic in front of it, and those times are gone, because the stuff that we need to turn in is a lot more precise. But let's leave it at it's certainly much more complex than it used to be.
Sure. And I guess we haven't touched at all really on your gear, and it would be cool to talk about some of your basses. Behind you have a couple of the BB 2024 and 2025. Right?
Yes, it's backwards, so I'm having a hard time spokesmodeling. There we go.
No, you did it right. Those are cool. I remember you getting some of those, and then you've been playing the BBP, the newest version of BB. Yeah, there you go. And you could tell a little bit by the difference in the pick guard. But the one that I had made you was the blue fretless one.
You mean this guy?
Yeah. And that was a really fun project. How's it holding up?
Dude, it's great. It's great. It's still just extremely inviting to play. It's a magnificent instrument. Just thank you so much, man. It was it was really fun to shoot back and forth with you, and just it's easy to tell working with you that you're passionate about, like you said, just like getting the thing right and making it the way. I mean, it's exactly how it looked in my mind. And the color that I asked for, make sure everybody can see this, try to get it out of reflections. It's just the most beautiful ocean blue I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a transparent blue over alder, because it's an alder body, but it was a hand applied stain that it uses this dye from Japan that's kind of hard to find here, and getting it all correct was and we made that at the old shop in Burbank. And so that you asked for the fretless part too.
Yes.
And so the finish on that is like this really cool technique where like we do super glue. It's just like a million layers of super glue.
That's crazy.
And it's like rock hard.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm always wanting to make you another bass too, because my goal every time is like to try and make you a new number one.
Okay.
So, you know, one of these days we got to get back in there and try and come up with something. But you know, how like what is your kind of go-to setup on the road? I know you play a lot of P and J, and you know that's what a BB is. It's you know the kind of hum canceling P pickup, and then like a single coil in the bridge position. Is that your main thing, or do you like single coils or different pickups? I know in that blue bass we put the Aguilar preamp in there.
Yes.
Which, you know, that's really great too. They make some really killer stuff, really nice guys. You know, what's your sound? Like, what are you looking for every time you're picking up a bass?
Man, I'm always looking. I mean, the deeply diplomatic answer is whatever's right for the song or the situation that I'm doing. So
that's very true.
I'm very happy to have a range of things to pick from. You know, like the BBs behind me, the fretless you made me. I have jazz basses, P basses, super active, you know, almost heavy metal basses. I have a coffee table bass. I have all this other like different types of things to choose from. I'm always looking for. I like articulation. I like some sort of definition and a sort of crispness to it. If you just if you woke me out of a sound sleep, said come up with a bass tone, I'm like, okay, fine. It's going to be, you know, there's going to be a little bit of saturation, just instead of like boosting highs, I like a little top end saturation for like pick attack or string noise. But like I said, I came up falling in love with bass players like Billy Gould from Faith No More and Flea and Justin Chancellor from Tool, guys with really articulate sort of bright tones. And those have always been the ones that like excite me the most. So I like round wound strings. I have a lot of basses that have maple necks.
Yeah.
And it's easy to pull that off if you decide you don't want it. That's you know, it's why God made a tone knob. But if it's not there to begin with, I think I like basses that have that character inherently, because then trying to get it out of pedals or pickups or even an onboard preamp, I only want that stuff to sort of emphasize something that's already there, or at the most remove something. Trying to inject characteristics into a bass that doesn't already have it is can I mean, unless that's you want it to sound kind of artificial or sort of harsh, which has its place, of course.
Sure.
But and I like stuff that's articulate and responsive.
Yeah, and kind of like, you know, you were talking about mixing and EQing and stuff. The kind of rule that I've always heard is like, you don't want to boost stuff, you want to cut the others, you know, and then artificially elevate something else.
Right.
And you know, it's like the tone knob is the least used thing on earth. You know, nobody likes to use it really, but you know, so that's cool. I mean, I would love to hear something if I don't know if we had a little bit of a mic thing going on. But yeah, I mean, I could
try something.
Okay, yeah, I mean, whatever you want to do. Okay. But you know, the kind of clarity I want to show some folks.
Okay. Let's see.
Oh, we can hear you pretty good.
This is some real behind the scenes. We're about to find out whether I'm wearing pants. I'm wearing pants.
Disappointment. Okay, and this is BBP 34.
Yes, there it is, which you also customized for me.
Yeah, we put the toggle switch instead. Yes.
So I'm not. God bless the internet. You have to tell me if you can hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah, man, this one's become a favorite as well. That is when you customize for me the selector switch instead of a volume tone and Seymour Duncan quarter pound pickups.
Yeah.
Which actually, once I discovered pickups like that have like a lot of articulation and it's a lot of like punch. Like it's one of those things that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but punch is good.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you're on stage, you're keeping the beat along with the drummer, so like you have to have that pulse, every time you're striking the string.
And I think probably sort of pursuant to what we were talking about as far as mixing, I think I like a bright tone because I do want some of that for me to sort of pop through the mix.
Yeah.
A little bit and give me a real sense of connection to the instrument so I can hear what I'm doing.
Yeah, you don't want to get lost or squished out. I said you don't want to get lost or squished out.
No, I want to really be able to hear and feel what I'm doing. I also recently started using one of those you heard about those mats that like vibrate with low end stuff?
What is that thing called? I've been trying to find out what that is. I want one of those so bad. What is that?
There's a lot of different names for them. I know there's a company that makes one called a pleasure board. Sorry, I had to say out loud.
Okay, that's good to forget. But
I think mine's made by a company called Porter and Davies. And
okay,
I believe they're British. Man, I know that's not what this little broadcast is about. Man, that thing's a game changer, and it is.
That's cool.
It is a lot of fun in a big, wide, washy thing. It just feels like you're standing in front of an 810, and I have kick put through it too.
Oh, that's so cool. Hey, I mean, Yamaha's an amazing company and we make all sorts of different stuff, but we know that like as an artist, you want to use whatever tool that you want to get the job done. And, you've been a supporter of Yamaha for a while now and like a really great representative of, what it is to be a consummate professional and to, play, that's a stock bass that like you can get at your local dealer, and you've played that on stage, with Taylor and stuff, right? So it's like we work really hard to take some of that stuff that professionals need and give it to everyone. But there's lots of gear. We all have pedals and things that we love, so don't sweat that. Okay. But I've been like I think that's super cool. Because nowadays on stage, you can't have this big, loud, background behind you. You can't have a wall of, 4x12s and 8x10s and all this stuff. So having that little thing to stand on, it gives you that feedback that you want without having to have this really loud stage volume. So that's very cool.
Yeah, it's a big help, and big ups to our monitor engineers and our backline team for being willing to wrangle that thing. It is truly, it really has changed my life.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, I think to wrap up, I've been asking everybody the same question, which is, what is something that you learned on the road with Taylor or, with any of your other gigs that have helped you be at home right now? I know it's tough for a lot of folks. A lot of people are, a lot of musicians are having a hard time. So what is some, kind of maybe a little pearl of wisdom that you got for everyone?
That's making it a little easier to be home.
Yeah, well, a lesson that you learned on the road that, is helping you at home, maybe it's develop a new skill or, maintain sanity or something,
Yeah, man. I've been, as I'm sort of navigating a lot of these, especially the software end of creating music by yourself, which if you're lucky enough to have a computer or a phone, you really can do. I think I have taken from any number of the musical projects I've been involved in. It's just I'll loop this back to the orchestra thing, where like for me, just being in a room of people trying hard and making something really sound the best and that sort of slow aggregate of all the things that our conductor said to us about, these need to go together. You need to be listening to your intonation. This forte is not loud enough. The piano isn't soft enough. This really needs to feel dynamic. All that stuff, all the way up to great big pop gigs where you're watching somebody, set the mood for the next song with an intro, or sort of I think you still can keep the performance storytelling aspect of it, even if it's just you and your computer, or you sitting in front of it with an acoustic guitar. We've all been moved deeply by somebody who's not using very much. And I think and people still just want to feel connected to, and like the person that they're watching is themselves connected to the thing they're performing for people. I think we still perform. I think we still do shows. My show looks like this now. It doesn't look like it used to, but I was able to learn how to do that, and I think all of us can learn how to do this. And I think we're all going to come out of this with a bunch of new skills and new approaches and ideas to what's possible and permissible. And I think even though the reason for it is so lousy, anytime there's some sort of great stress or shakeup, there's always a possibility for something new and exciting to come out of that situation that wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you so much for coming on today, giving everybody, your history, some really great tips. And if they want to learn more about you or what you're up to, where could they find you?
Sure. I'm on Instagram at Amos J. Heller, and I just started a YouTube page that's just under Amos Heller, where you can find the occasion, you can find the social riffing lesson, you can find some other performances and pedal demos and stuff like that. That's a thing that I'm just launching now, and when I've gone through 3 or 4 more tutorials, we'll see more content.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, get on there, get after Amos, ask some questions, get some lessons, or I don't know if you do that anymore. But I'm
open to just about anything.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much. This was a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you in person, hopefully sooner than later. And we'll have to talk more bass shortly.
Let's make that next one.
Yes. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.